Hello everybody. What do Adele, Sean Connery and Meryl Streep have in common? You might argue that they are all geniuses in their own field, and that is true, yet it is only one side of the coin. What also links them is that they build their careers and development on their individual talent. The good news is that you do not have to be a genius to achieve great things and become the best of who you are. A quote that is often attributed to Albert Einstein is, "Everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid." This implies that everyone has a different ability or particular genius. It is your task then to identify your individual talents and align your career accordingly in order to maximize your potential. And the aim of my talk is to help you doing precisely this. As you can derive from the picture I was drawing to illustrate the Einstein quote, my talents are obviously not rooted in the arts of drawing. And what you see took me 2 hours of hard work. The all I actually took out of a book of how to draw animals I once purchased for my little daughter when she was 3 years old. In the next minutes, I will create awareness for important aspects and triggers that have changed my life and helped me to become my personal best. Obviously not an artist. And that will also support you to become the best of who you can be. I want to begin by telling a short yet powerful story about Herbert von Karajan. In the mid-80s, the famous conductor gave an interview on German radio. Returning from vacation, the interviewer asked him whether he had recovered well. The orchestra leader was annoyed and replied angrily how she could ask such an ignorant question. He stated that he had not been able to work at all. The journalist was surprised and said that holidays were for recreation and not for work, but the musician said that she did not understand the facts of the matter, since for her work as a journalist was a job, but for him, his profession is his passion. Taking away his conducting stuff is like taking away water from a plant. I call this the Karajan factor, and it tracks the degree of intrinsic motivation you have for your job. If it is 0, you work for living. And if it is 100, you literally live to work, as your work and your vocation are identical. Consequently, try to orient and plan your career according to your strength, as you will then experience a higher intrinsic motivation in the performance of your work. This may come across as a no-brainer, but countless people spend most of their time on trying to minimize their weaknesses by attending trainings, online seminars, and so on and so forth. Let me tell you my personal story about my development and how I became a university professor in order to best bring to life and illustrate what I have in mind. When I started my professional career at Shell International Petroleum Company Limited, I also made the mistake of attending workshops and seminars in order to compensate my weaknesses. But this changed overnight after a discussion with one Vice President Human Resources who told me the following analogy. As to personal development, the human being can be compared with a hand. The fingers represent the strength, and the spaces between represent the weaknesses of the person. If you try to minimize your weaknesses, it is very cumbersome and maybe new little fingers may grow in the gaps. But this is rather counterproductive because it is now harder to grasp with the hand than before. Instead, you should concentrate on your individual strength and thus extend the existing fingers to maximize your grasping radius. That is also beneficial from an organizational perspective, as other people's strength or fingers fit exactly into your weaknesses or gaps, so that the employees and their profiles complement each other. It is like forming snowballs in wintertime. It is easier to do this with a fingered glove, which is focusing on your strength, than with a mitten, which is created when we concentrate on our weaknesses. From that day on, I've mainly focused on my strength and aligned my career accordingly. Now, of course, the question arises as to what a strength actually is and what constitutes it. A practical definition comes from the US-based renowned Gallup Institute, which states that an individual's strength is comprised of talent, knowledge, and experience. Knowledge you acquire through learning, reading books and education in general, or listening to my talk. Experience you gather over time and it grows automatically. Now we come to talent as the most important ingredient of a strength. Many people consider talent to be a special gift that is only handed down to a few lucky people, such as Adele or Mozart, who wrote his first compositions at the age of 4. It is paramount to understand, however, that everyone has individual talents which enable us to be great at certain things. But you cannot create talent. Your talents are given by nature. For example, I'm a good tennis player, but no matter how many tennis lessons I will get, I will never play as good as Roger Federer. And that is okay, as I have other talents which Roger has not. And in this respect, everyone can be great at something. Let me tell you the story of a friend and former working colleague at Shell. He was working in the loyalty cards department within marketing and liked his job. His passion, however, was soccer, and he was a talented photographer. And finally, he decided to change his life completely and follow his strength and passion, and he left the company to become a sports photographer. And whenever I talk to him afterwards, he says that he has the best job in the world, as he made his hobby his profession and never has to work anymore in his life. Against this background, it is clear that combining talent with knowledge and skills will help you consistently achieve exceptional performance and, moreover, happiness. Always try to set your goals in such a way that you have to build on your strength and not reduce your weaknesses in order to achieve them. It is much more motivating for you to improve in an area where you're already good. The energy you use for this is much more productively used than if you try to eliminate your weaknesses. In addition, this strategy has another career-related advantage. Individual strengths are much more likely to be registered by your environment and your superiors than the absence of weaknesses. When searching for your personal strength, take a differentiated approach, like Steffi Graf, the former professional tennis player who was ranked world number 1 for a record 377 weeks. What was her strength? People would argue tennis, but that is only partially correct. In fact, her forehand was her dominant talent, whereas her backhand topspin was a weakness. How did her training look like? A traditional approach would have been to focus on improving the backhand topspin. But the contrary was true. Steffi and her coaches turned their attention to the most important work, refining and perfecting her greatest talent, her forehand. They only worked on her weaknesses just enough to ensure that they did not undermine her strength. Think about what your talents are, knowledge and skills, by following the so-called EFP process. E stands for ease, so think about what you find easy to do. Carry a piece of paper with you for a month and write down what is easy to do for you, regardless of the category. Especially if you have achieved an extraordinary performance and you have managed to do it without much effort, there may be a talent behind it. Write down these activities. F stands for financially independent. So imagine you get as much money as you want on the condition that you keep working. What kind of work would you do if material considerations were not important? What would you want to do every day? And finally, the P stands for positivity. So think about the task that will positively charge you. Be sure to consider activities outside the office or those that you are attracted to but have not yet implemented. For which activities do you forget the time? Which activities make it easy for you to deepen your knowledge and to be completely absorbed in a task? After which tasks do you feel charged and happy? What are you looking forward to when you think about next week? Which tasks did you enjoy in the last week? When you have collected enough information through the EFP process, create your individual strength profile, collect all your talents, knowledge and experience, and then write down 3 concrete activities that you want to dedicate yourself to in the future. Also, think about how you can manage to integrate these activities more into your work in the future and plan for it. If you find or recognize only one talent through this exercise and can integrate it more into your life, listening to me will have been worthwhile for your professional and private development. In this context, it is important to remember when analyzing your talents that a lack of a talent for a certain job is not a weakness of the person, but at most a weakness with regard to a specific job. This worked out for me as well, because like with my Shell working colleague, my professional career changed as well after I was asked to do a workshop at the university about marketing. Although I had not much experience to talk about, I love being in exchange with young students, and I got the feeling that I helped them unlocking their potential, and this intrinsically motivated me in such a way that I started giving lessons about management at the university in parallel to my job at Shell. When doing so and talking about human resource management, I always embedded the analogy of the hand. After some while, I was getting an email from a student who left the university some while ago to start his own business. In the reference line, he wrote, "Thanks for your impact on my life." And in the mail itself, he wrote to me how the analogy with the hand and my lecture helped him change his life for the better. From that moment on, I decided that I wanted to become a full-time professor and use my talent to help people discover and unlock their potential and therefore make an impact on their life. And I never did regret this decision, as my Karajan factor is 100 now. Finally, I want to pinpoint at some important aspects when it comes to self-realization in this respect. As the US military once stated, we do live in a VUCA world, which is an acronym, and it stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. This is particularly the case nowadays, where we encounter the corona pandemic and disruption everywhere. If the world changes and imposes new challenges upon you, you have to react like a ship on the waves of change. Always keep in mind that the words change and chance are different by one letter only. When marketing yourself, try to focus on challenges that people are facing and then analyze in how far your strength can provide solutions to that. Do never try to sell yourself as a product, but look for the problems that people, organizations, and institutions have and then develop solutions by building and capitalizing on your individual talents. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, the author of The Little Prince, once wrote, "Building a boat isn't about weaving canvas, forging nails, or reading the sky. It is about giving a shared taste for the sea." I hope that I made some impact on your life in the form of an intensified taste for the sea, which is all inside of you, as you are not a drop in the ocean, but the ocean in a drop. And I wish you every success on your way to become the best of who you are. Thank you all very much.